love is all you want.
Morning guys, welcome back to Richard's channel. I'm going to take something a little bit different now. Rather than doing my daily routine, I'm going to just try and tell a few jokes, let you all know how funny I am. Obviously I've got a few on relationships, bit of carry jokey, obviously everyone knows the answers to those ones. A couple about diet, which obviously everyone knows that I need, and then obviously we'll go from there. So one thing that I've realised about being a man in a relationship is that we tend not to listen, and if we do, it's only partly. Like at school, when you taught how to read, you taught to skim read. I think that's kind of how we listen. I know this because Becky Clares were telling me the same thing about 8 times this week, and I've still no idea what she's on about. This being said, we are good at keeping secrets, unless you talk to us about football, beer and money. Chances are we're not really listening. So you can tell us whatever you want and nobody will ever know the outcome, or nobody will ever know what you've said. I was recently stood in front of the mirror doing all those poses, you know, the ones lads, the strongman poses like this, you know, trying to make yourself feel better. And I was looking in the mirror, I said to myself, oh God, 1 inch more and you'd be king. I heard a giggle from the top of the stairs. I thought, oh, Becky's there. I also heard a response saying 1 inch less and you'd be a queen. That was a little bit dampening on the old ego. So me and Becky went for food. God, before this lockdown started now. And as any of you know who's in a relationship, it takes a while for you to pick where you're going. So we were fighting about where to eat, and she ended up getting her own way as always. We ended up going to Nando's. All the food places are available. We sat at the table, finally having our meal. It took us 3 hours to decide to get there, and Becky drops garlic sauce down the top. She said to herself, oh no, I look like a pig. Stupidly I just nodded and said, yep, and now you've got garlic sauce on your top too. Safe to say the night didn't go too much longer, and we ended up being in silence for the rest of it. This one, I have to reiterate, is just a joke. Nothing like this has ever happened. She will go mad at me. So when we lived in Darwin back in 2018, any of our deliveries that came, we had a driver called Jim. He worked for DPD, and to speak to, he was a nice enough guy. This opinion on our friend Jim soon changed. Becky told me what had happened between them and how bad she felt, so being a man, I confronted him. You slept with my missus, you're going to pay for that. To which he replied, excuse me, no way am I going to pay twice. And then he drove off. Firstly, she didn't tell me she got paid for it. And secondly, why didn't I see any money from this transaction? We're supposed to be a team. All money that comes in is supposed to be equal. So we've still got to speak about that. She then asked me, am I your dream woman? Laid in bed, head on my chest. Am I your dream woman, Richard? To which I sensibly replied, yep, you're so much more than that, babe. She looked up at me, big smile on her face, and said, oh really? How much more? I don't think she quite expected me to be so honest when I said about 3 personalities more. This was the night that I found out how uncomfortable my couch was, so I don't recommend being so honest when you're in bed, guys. I must admit that Becky does have some good liners when she isn't pregnant, and her response time is fairly decent when she's not blaming the baby brain. In total, up to now, she's been pregnant for about 15 out of the 26 months we've been together. So yeah, it's quite fun. But anyway, I was having a chat the other day and I said to her, when I see stupid faces, I can't help but smile. She said, as quick as a flash, doesn't that make shaving kind of difficult? Yeah, cheers babe, thanks again for that. But I did get my own back when she asked if I thought she was pretty or ugly. Both was my response. I guess this wasn't quite the response she was looking for, and by the tone of her response, what the fuck do you mean? I guess she was a little upset and slightly terrified. I quickly reiterated what I meant and elaborated on my answer, and I said I meant you're pretty ugly, Bex. So she is both, but not in the way that she wanted to be. For those of you that obviously know and you've just listened to the previous one, you know that Becky's pregnant again. And the other day we went round for an antenatal checkup. We entered the room and was greeted by a foreign nurse who said, I'm not going to try any accents, but something along the lines of get comfortable on the table in the position in which baby was conceived, and I'll be back in a second. Now you can imagine the look on my face now. I was like, get in. It was extra all over my face, couldn't stop smiling. So Becky gets on the table, on all fours, in walks the nurse. She drops all the instruments, all the files and paperwork, along with a pot that Becky needed to piss into. And stood there in shock. It's safe to say this is one of the times when the language barrier didn't quite translate. That was funny for me, not as much for Becky. So we live in a world now where we have to be, well, we're almost demanded to be accepting, to be more accommodating. Some would say all inclusive. We've got the LGBTQ community. We've got people who fall in love and apparently can marry a ghost, a building or vehicles. And then there's people who don't identify as human, they identify as aliens, get all this work done. So I just want you to all know that this is my coming out party and clearly you're all invited. I'd like to tell you all that I identify as a can of deodorant. And before you comment or ask, yes, I am sure. Another thing that has been looking good about the future is that a jellyfish has existed as a species for over 500 million years, and all that time it's been surviving without a brain. Believe it or not, this fills me with a lot of confidence for you lot on the other side of this.